Hello and welcome to the first episode of our new Talking Point show here on the Rangers Review. I'm Chris Jack and I'm delighted to be joined by Stevie Clifford for the first episode of this new series as we take a deeper look at some of the key issues both on and off the park that surround Rangers this season. Stevie, we've done big interviews with former players, we've had live shows together, we're regulars on the morning briefing. All of that experience, knowledge, know-how now leads us to our very own Talking Point show on the Rangers Review. What could possibly go wrong?
Chris, it's long overdue. A couple of OGs like yourself, that should have been the first thing that the Rangers Review done, give us their own platform. But no, in all seriousness, I don't think it could have happened without people asking for it. I know there was a really good reaction to our shows we done while the boys were away in Germany for the Euros. So, yeah, really looking forward to it, and hopefully we can tackle some of the subject that people want answered.
Derek gave us a shout out on the morning briefing this morning, and one of the comments that I saw coming in on the right hand side was Jack and Victor. We were going to call this the Rangers Daz, but we thought better of it, and we'll go for talking points instead. But the first topic for this, it's the one that has been outside of the transfer chat and all the ins and outs and comings and goings. It has been the key issue for the Rangers support in recent months. And that is, of course, the move to Hamden. Rangers announced in June that work on the Copeland stand would not be completed as expected in time for the start of the new campaign. And as a result, Philippe Clement's side will now play their first home fixtures of the season at Hamden after a deal was struck for the team to move across the city. Stevie, if we go back to, I think it's safe to call this a saga. I don't think I'm upsetting anyone by calling it a saga now. Can you perhaps just remind the viewers why Rangers embarked on this project in the first place? Can you outline why it's been done and what Ibrox will look like when this work is finally completed over the as yet to be determined timeframe?
Yeah, so the whole idea behind it was to enhance the disabled facilities within the stadium. Most people will know that currently disabled fans are housed at the front of the both enclosures, east and west enclosures, and that is really not ideal. They are open to all the elements. They are open to the dangers of footballs, etc. And there was a decision made just to try and move them to a more hospitable environment, basically, which was one that was a better kind of more coverage for the weather and better vantage point, etc., etc. So most will remember that when the Blue Sky Lounge was built up the back of the Sandy Jardine stand, there was a couple of higher kind of level positions for disabled supporters to sit in. Basically, it's just like an elevated kind of platform, which gives them a great vantage point and they're away from the elements, etc. Decision was then made that they could add cantilevers to both the front of the Broomloan and the Copeland rear, making basically, Chris, it extends the front, the rear of the stand. So that would add 600 seats approximately to the capacity of each stand. So Rangers decided to embark on the first part of that, which was to do the Copeland this summer. And then we all know subsequently what's happened since. But that was the idea behind it. And in all honesty, it's a very good one. We need to bring those standards up for the disabled supporters and make it more hospitable. I think that's the best way to put it for them when they're visiting the stadium. So that's why it was done. That's the decision-making behind it. The rest we know unfolded how it did.
I don't think anyone would have I think we can have complaints about how the process has unfolded. We can have, as we'll come on to speak about, complaints about the communication around the various issues. But the basis of it, the fact that Rangers want to do the right thing, that has been the driving force behind this. It's doing the right thing for those disabled supporters, for the support in general. A club of Rangers standing, of Rangers stature, it should have the best facilities for every supporter, whether disabled or not. Every fan should have the best matchday experience possible. So I don't think we can have complaints about the club embarking on this project, but the actual project, of course, has not has not gone to plan. Early June, John Bennett was back up in Glasgow, had a series of meetings, and he was informed on his arrival at Ibrox that the work in the Copeland is not going to be completed in time. A few days after that, also the statement was then put out from the club. There wasn't a quote from the chairman in that particular statement, and it was a statement, I think, that perhaps raised more questions than it answered. Now, it was early on in the process. The club did not have every answer to every question that was going to come up. But I think we spoke about it at the time in terms of the communication around that issue and a number of other issues. I think we both agree that it could have been better. What do you hope Rangers learn from that situation? Hopefully they don't find themselves in a situation of this like magnitude again. But communication with the fans, I think you've said on the show previously, be open, be honest, communicate as regularly and as often as you can. Ultimately, the fans are the ones who have been the most inconvenienced here. Yes, John Bennett and his board will have to foot the bill for Hamden. Yes, it's not ideal for the playing squad and the manager to be at Hamden rather than Ibrox, but there's tens of thousands of people who have paid hundreds of pounds for season tickets, wouldn't be able to take those seats in the first weeks of the season. How would you look at the communication around when the initial announcement and to how those weeks unfolded leading up to the chairman's RTV interview after the Union Berlin game?
Certainly hasn't been good enough, and that's disappointing, because when you look back on John Bennett's last public kind of speech to the support just over 2 years ago, he said that communication was an area in which we had failed and something we're drastically trying to improve. Well, 2 years on, you're sitting at a really big moment. I understand completely, to caveat that and to add some context, I understand, Chris, like you said, that there's things that they can't answer. But I would much rather have had answers to what they could tell us. Mm-hmm. And if that was, at the moment, we just don't know. This is the situation. This is how it's happened. This is why it's happened. And this is how we're going to fix it. Now, there's some things that we don't know. Timescales we don't know at the moment because of X, Y, Z. But I just feel like the chairman's address, which he gave at the end of the month there, he could have gave 3 weeks earlier. There was nothing in that he couldn't have told the supporters, and it would have pushed it to the side, and we all would have then focused on transfers. We all would have focused on other things that are more important at this point in the summer. And that's been a big issue for me. So I hope they learn from that. I've been hoping they've learned from that for a very long time. I did think the communication from the club under James Bisgrove was a lot more forefront. But John Bennett is obviously not a public speaker. He's not somebody that enjoys that. And I'm worried that it's going slightly back to how it was before. What I would hope they learn, apart from the communication, is just basically to listen. There's a lot of people around this club who invest a lot of money, who have a lot of really successful businesses in construction and all sorts of that. And the club were warned that this was a really difficult project and a really difficult thing to do. And it's almost like there's been a wee bit of bluster from certain people at the club just to push it through no matter what. Now, that may sound harsh, but the issue is that we've just steamed ahead when the materials haven't been here on the promise that it'll work. And I remember at the AGM, somebody standing up and saying that this will never happen and it will never be finished in time because of the dangers surrounding the build and surrounding materials and things like that. There would have been no shame in Rangers explaining to the support, we've had to put this back for a year. We don't want to start any construction until everything's here. And the reasons why is because this is what might happen. Mm-hmm. Every single one of us might have moaned. I said, that's another thing the club will put back, everything else. But it would have been better of the alternative, which was a huge amount of embarrassment. The problem with no communication is it allows other people to fill voids. It allows people to then give their opinions and state it as fact. And all of a sudden you're creating a panic amongst the support. You're not going to get back in the stadium till January. There's this and that wrong with the stadium. This is going on. This is going on. I think it's important that we don't allow those things to happen. And that's something that, we would feed back to the club. Absolutely. And I just hope that I think that without sounding bad, I think sometimes it comes across like the football club know everything. And I just think there's people that they could have listened to at the time and took advice from and sought, another route rather than the one they did. And that's all great, saying that in hindsight. It absolutely is. I think, in fairness, John Bennett was given those assurances when he's asking members of staff and he's asking key executives, are we getting this done? And right up until the very last minute where they can't possibly, say any longer, he's been told it is. So I feel sorry for John Bennett in some ways that he has inherited this. But unfortunately for him, as chairman in the eyes of many, the buck will stop with him. And that's something that I think, personally will hurt him, because I know how much he loves the club and loves Rangers, but something that he maybe needs to take responsibility for, Chris, as harsh as that might be.
I think, as you say, Stevie, these type of things, it's not John Bennett's day-to-day job to order the steel, to be in touch with the contractors, to know exactly what's being done on a daily basis at Ibrox. That work is obviously outsourced to different people, to different firms. But as chairman, and I'm sure he wouldn't shirk away from that responsibility, when you're Rangers chairman, every matter, big or small, ultimately falls under your remit and lands at your door. During the RTV interview was conducted when the club were out in Berlin for the friendly, then released on the Monday evening, he tried to outline some of the issues that they have had with the shipping and with the delivery. And Vessel 3, or Shipment 3, as he described it, said is scheduled to land in Glasgow the third week in August. We're obviously not at the third week in August as yet. He then went on to talk about the timelines, and he said, when I think about timelines, it is an aspiration at this stage, because I am again caveating it, and there's still uncertainty. If I think about timelines, clearly it is about the timeline of us returning to our home, which we all desperately want, clearly after the September international break. And it is a case of how long after the September international break we can aspire for that to be at the end of September. But it is an aspiration. He talks about being sorry that he had to caveat. I think caveat was the main theme of that interview. And he did say, yes, it could slip beyond that. Would you hope that there is another interview or another statement, another update, even if it's just a briefing to certain members of the press to try and get the information out there? The club hopefully learning from those issues that were spoke about in terms of communication. Should there be more regular updates going forward? Of course, they can't promise anything. They can't say the first game will be this one, you will be back in your seats and everything will be fine. But there are ways and means of getting information out there to the support and keeping them a bit more up to speed as hopefully this process starts to draw towards a conclusion.
It's very easy for us to say, Chris, because we are perhaps a more trusted and friendly, looked upon source of information for the support. I don't think that's entirely unfair, as much as it may sound a wee bit egotistical. It's certainly not meant to be. I think certain people can be used to give information out to the supporters which are trusted, and it doesn't mean that there needs to be statements as such. Rangers have promised many updates, which I would expect them to keep that promise. If they don't, that's when supporters are upset. I think we all understand that, Shipment 3 or whatever is subject to potential delays and things like that. We understand that, and I think many of us have probably braced ourselves for bad news surrounding that, just how this is going. I'm hopeful it's not going to come to that, and I would just hope that Rangers, when they do have that information, are a wee bit forthcoming with, that information out to the supporters. So we can only hope that the club have learned that when you create a vacuum, other people that are not friendly with the club will fill it. And I think they've got an ideal opportunity in the next few weeks to show that they have learned from that and will practice and demonstrate the many updates and things that they've said, Chris. So, it's a frustration because we often get asked, and when we ask, we don't get any answers either. So it's a difficult one. And I think that, it's for us, as supporters of the club as well. It's difficult to deal with and we can only try our best and ask. But I would hope the club stick to what they've said they're going to do, the mini updates, the as much information out to the supporters they can. So I think at the moment where we are is we need to wait until the latter stages of this month, the third week, to find out exactly where that shipment is. And then if that does arrive, at that point, it's basically full steam ahead, because everything's been done that can be done up until then. And I think these are the actual blocks that just sit in place. And if you can imagine what that sounds like, folks, is exactly what it is. It's the concrete blocks where the disabled access will be, and all the kind of underwork for that, where they'll sit, how they'll sit, etc., has been done. So that's basically where we are. And once that arrives, as the chairman outlined, it's a matter of weeks then, not months or anything like that. So if they do arrive, I'm hopeful that the 28th of September, I think we're at home to Hibs that day, Chris. That's a feasible target for, our re-entry into the stadium. I don't want to look at the other alternatives if that doesn't happen. So, I would hope that information, as soon as it's available, get it out there. There's a feel-good factor around as much as it possibly can be, because some people obviously will never, forgive this or be happy with this, and I understand that's their right. But the ultimate thing is, this all goes back to, if Rangers are doing well in the park and a few signings are in, they get that information out, you can flip the narrative quite quickly. And I think as Rangers being, more aware of the supporters' feelings and eager to kind of do that, then I would hope that they would realise that although there has been difficult moments this summer, they've got a real opportunity to flip the feel-good factor and get a degree of positivity. It was a good result in Kiev the other night. Arguably, Saturday, there was some moments in it that you can build on. They clearly have built on it in the European game, although it wasn't a good result against Hearts. Dropping points never is. But the more things begin to turn, if you pick up a couple of league wins, if you get past Kiev, then there's a real opportunity to get that information out as quickly as possible and feel that and feed that feel-good factor. So let's hope they do.
The fans waited a long time to find out where they are going to be sitting at Hamden for the first game this weekend. They also waited a number of weeks to find out that it would actually be Hamden that is the choice. Now, John spoke in that Rangers TV interview about Hamden being the best choice. I think in the days after the club statement, and there was also a number of conversations around that. It wasn't guaranteed that it would be Hamden. The idea of playing at a three-sided Ibrox was one that was put forward. People saying just close the Copeland off and play at home. You've then at least still got something resembling the Ibrox factor. Murrayfield was obviously the other big talking point. Initially, it looked like Murrayfield was going to be the venue. Ultimately, it's not been. Do you think Hamden is the best choice? I know it's a choice that the club have settled on. That deal's done. Everything's in place. It's, as you say, it's full steam ahead now, heading into the weekend. Where do you stand on the Murrayfield versus Hamden debate? Is Murrayfield the best choice? Or did you ever think it could actually be Rangers heading to Edinburgh for the first weeks of this season?
Controversially, I'm glad it's Hamden. And I know there'll be a lot of people that would have chosen Murrayfield just for something different. I thought that the Manchester United friendly was very difficult to negotiate. There was a number of obstacles around the stadium, and the layout and the setup wasn't great. Now, Hamden is not perfect. I don't think any of us will say that. I don't think that the position of Hamden, and where you could be sitting and the atmosphere and how far you are away, etc. I understand completely. Murrayfield's not too dissimilar. So, for a lack of inconvenience, I would have chosen Hamden. So it is what it is. It's one of those ones where you just need to suck it up. I think there's pros and cons of everything, to be quite honest with you, Chris. I'm glad it's Hamden. That might not be popular with a lot of people. I understand that completely. But it's done now. So it's a case of, these upcoming games. I think we do have 4 or 5, potentially 5 on the run now. 2 very big league games. We need to get maximum points. League Cup, we need to progress. Kyiv is a massive opportunity there for the club to get through that one. And by the way, if they do manage to get through that one, it will be, a magnificent kind of achievement by Philippe Clement, considering the state of the current squad, which is another show entirely, I think. But Hamden is, and we just have to treat it like our home as much as we can, get the job done, and get the result, because that's the only thing that matters. So big one on Saturday, and then you just go from there. It's all about momentum. You get one, hopefully. As difficult it will be, Motherwell will not come and roll over. We've seen it last season. So, there's a potential there for this to be really difficult. But at the end of the day, we have to get the wins, and we have to you get one, then you get another kind of thing, and it all hopefully goes from there.
You mentioned there, Stevie, some fans might not be happy that it's Hamden. Do you think that ties in with the SFA SPFL factor? Now, John, in that interview last week, he thanked both bodies for their cooperation, thanked them for their help. Safe to say, help and cooperation have not always been forthcoming from SFA and the SPFL in recent years. Rangers fans have long memories, but do you think that it perhaps sticks in the craw a wee bit of fans that they have had to go to the SFA and go to the SPFL and say, look, we've put ourselves in this corner, we've created this problem, we need you to help us out of it? Is that one of the factors that people are perhaps wary of, or not wary, but they're not happy with Hamden because they have had to call in a favour, in effect?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And as one of those people, John Bennett's speech as such round about how they acted as partners and how they done everything they could stuck a wee bit for me, absolutely, because I do have a long memory, as you very well know, Christopher, that I am somewhat unforgiving at times, and I really don't want anything to do with them in that kind of situation. However, at the same time, I am grateful, because embarrassingly this has been done by ourselves, and they could quite rightly have probably said no. So, and then who knows where we would have ended up, or what the situation could be. Philippe Clement's very famous, if we play on the car parks, then we will do that, might have actually came to fruition. So, yeah, look, I can completely understand it. That is why there's dubiety, we'll say that, amongst the support. But I think that, it's just something, again, it goes back to saying before, I think it's just something we need to accept and get on with it. It's not ideal. People won't like it. I understand it completely. But you go and get 4 or 5 wins in the games you have to play there then and move on. I think, people will quickly forget about Hamden and that side of it. I don't think it'll be as easy to be as forgiving to the board and the situation they've created. Ultimately, the only thing that's going to alleviate this whole mess is winning football matches and becoming successful, because then everybody will just be like, we don't care, because this is now happening and we're now successful. And you and I both know ultimately that's all that counts.
How do you think we'll both be at Hamden on Saturday for this first match? I spoke to someone about this last week in terms of what the club can do to. It's not going to feel like home. It's not going to be Ibrox, obviously, but things that the club can do to try and make it feel that Rangers are tenants rather than just turning up for a couple of games. I dare say there will be a lot of branding being done. There'll be a lot of stickers. They'll try and make it feel like Ibrox. I dare say the ground staff will have had an impact. I had a say in how the pitch sets up as well. Rangers will obviously have the home dressing room. How do you think a Hamden game will look and feel for the Rangers support? Because normally we go there, it's 50-50, or they have 75%. If it's a non-Old Firm game, they will have a huge, vast majority of the stadium. It will be a home fixture. Is it ever going to look and feel like a home fixture, or will it just look and feel a bit strange? Certainly, I think for Saturday it'll be unique but strange. Come Tuesday, with everything that's at stake, you would hope people park any reservations, any fears, anything, any anger about it. They have to park that, because Tuesday's such a huge game for the club. By the time you then get into the other league games, that St Johnstone game coming up could be a difficult one in terms of atmosphere. How do you think Hamden will act as a host over these next few weeks?
I don't think it'll be anywhere near home. I think we'll all feel like we're visiting. I think that's quite clear. But ultimately, as simplistic as it is, if you're winning and you're playing well in that park, it doesn't really matter where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Away games, the atmosphere is sensational. Midweek, the fans in Poland, in their hundreds, were terrific. And that's such a difficult journey to make. And, you have all the potential issues around that, and they were fantastic. So I would just hope that we would treat it as an away day, and in terms of going with that kind of siege mentality of let's get in here, get the job done, get out and get up the road. So it's only 4 or 5 games. It's only 2 league games. Potentially, please let it be no more than that. If it's 2 league games, Chris, we can survive. If it's 2 European games and we do well, people will look fondly on Hamden. Crucially, and yes, you may think that this is grasping slightly, if we do manage to negotiate these games and then that gets parked and we get back to Ibrox and later on in cup competitions we go back to Hamden, potentially I think there might be more of a feel-good factor surrounding that, because Hamden hasn't been the best situation for Rangers in recent years. We both know that. But if we can get some results behind that kind of, I'm not going to say fear factor, but that reservation surrounding Hamden might be gone, because people will suddenly say, well, look, we nailed the 4 or 5 games we had there earlier on in the season. We know what we can do as a support and as a fan base. Let's turn that negative into a positive and push on. So I'm looking at the best available options, and that can only start with the team winning. So as you well know, and I've said countless times, that's the only thing that matters at Rangers Football Club. Rangers winning. The rest can come. But I happen to feel, and I've said this before on recent reviews, that the arrival of Robin Proper, Václav Černý, a good result the other night, if they can win next week, a couple of people exiting, a couple of people coming in, Hamden starts to roll, you get that news about the stadium, things can really change quickly. And that's the ideal solution for Rangers and what I'm looking for the next couple of weeks, Chris. Definitely a glass half full kind of situation, I think, either way. And we've got to hope that, given all the luck we've had this summer, that's the outcome that we're looking for the next few weeks.
And also the people who drive that, it's the manager and a squad of players. The manager was asked about it. I was out in pre-season with the team in Holland. The manager was asked about it then, and he said there's no excuses. It also came as a shock to him. I can imagine that was a difficult phone call for the chairman to have to make to Philippe and say, I'm sorry, but you've lost your home advantage to an extent over the first few weeks, especially as you outlined there, when we know the importance of these league games, we know the significance of the Champions League games. I can't imagine the manager was too pleased, but I think as we've both seen in his pressers and when he's spoken pre and post match, he doesn't generally look for excuses. It doesn't allow these things to creep into the narrative and to become bigger than he needs them to be. He deals with the things that he can deal with, and he spoke about that out in Holland at this time last month about ultimately Rangers just need to go and, as you outlined, go and win these games. If they don't win the league this season, the first half a dozen games being at Hamden is not used as an excuse. It's been because you've not been good enough. You've not done your job on the pitch, and ultimately that's all that this management team and this squad. You look at the games coming up, all very winnable ones, and as you outlined there, what a difference that would make to the feel good amongst the support, but the belief in this squad, and I think the belief within the group as well. It would give them something to hold on to. So yes, it's inconvenience. Yes, it's not ideal. Rangers have to deal with it, and they have to go and hold up the end of the bargain now.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that's all spot on, all correct. I can't really add too much to it, without repeating the same words. It's just go and win the games, and then the rest will follow. They've got an opportunity, as much as it's a hindrance. As much as it's difficult, absolutely it is. But there's a real opportunity now to go flip the narrative and go and really kick on. Kyiv is huge. I think that's, if you can get past that, and let's be honest, I think it would be a great discussion point for the next talking point in the squad situation. This squad really is, you look at that team against Hearts at the weekend, it's last season reserves. No disrespect, because we've lost the better players that needed to move on, but we've lost them. Kyiv was, you can see again the same issues, but Czerny coming in, Proper hopefully coming in, Connor Barron starting, Sterling returning to fitness. All of a sudden, you're starting to feel a wee bit better. You've seen the difference that Sterling made the other night, Chris, and how vital he could be. If Diamandi could push forward, if Sterling could go in next to Barron, Proper shores up that defence. Czerny comes in and is actually a right winger that we want. Although he wasn't great the other night, I thought he was pretty poor up until that magical moment. All of a sudden, Hefty looked like he might be able to fill in the left for a while, and you get another couple of players in, and you're getting there. The jigsaw's starting to come together a wee bit. So there's a lot of work to be done, signing-wise. There's a lot of work to be done, players going out the door. There's a lot of work to be done on the pitch. Get it completely. But football is small margins, Chris. As you and I both know, we've been here so many times over the last, 10 years, going to report on something. And you think if we can just get through these wee bits, things will come together. So we're once again at that bridge, aren't we? Where that's the situation we find ourselves in. And if Rangers can just put it together a wee bit, then there's a real opportunity here, I think, to take the positivity up again and kick on. And that's what I'm hoping for, because there's too much negativity. If it doesn't go our way and things get really difficult this month, then it's going to take a lot to recover from this season. You cannot win anything in August or September. You can certainly make it really difficult, to I'm not going to say we can lose things, but you can certainly make it really difficult to recover, that's for sure. So just go and get the results. Go and get the results and flip the narrative and make us all feel a wee bit better. A couple of signings. Not asking for too much. Fix the stadium. You know what I mean? It'll be fine.
I think, as you've outlined there, Stevie, we have plenty of talking points to keep us going on this new show. So that will bring an end to our discussion about Hamden. Fingers crossed, it is a positive afternoon for Rangers. As you say, positivity has been in short supply at times over the summer. But if Rangers can go and do the job on Saturday against Motherwell, as you say, that then bounces everyone into Tuesday night, and hopefully by the time we are back on the show, things are looking slightly rosier in the Rangers garden. So, Stevie, as always, thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed the chat, and we will speak to everyone again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll flip it about a wee bit, Chris, as well, when we do these things, so that
won't always be as serious and as
so that there's more opportunity for you to get involved as well, because you've more or less hosted this one. So maybe next time we'll flip it a wee bit. So everybody watching, we will do that, so you get a fair opportunity for those tuning in to hear Chris's thoughts as well. We'll make sure we do all that, and hopefully this should be a fun outlet for ourselves. We certainly didn't set it up to be ultra negative, but that was, you're right, Chris, the summer talking point. Now that's out the way. Hopefully in a couple of weeks when we do return, we've got a few more signings and we can look at the squad.
If that's not an incentive for the manager and the players to go and win these games, to keep us happy, to change the mood of this show, if that doesn't inspire them over the next couple of weeks, then nothing will.
Absolutely. Somebody suggested Jack and Victor. It might well end up like that if they don't. But let's look to that. And Chris, as I said, thanks for everybody watching. Thank you for your time, and hopefully see everybody again for the next show.
Thank you.